Have you ever wondered why the rich seem to get richer, even when they take on massive amounts of debt? While most people run from debt like it's a financial plague, the wealthy see it as one of the most powerful tools for building empires. And that's what I'm about to show you today, how rich people use debt not to survive, but to multiply their wealth, and how you can start thinking like them, even if you're starting from zero. After years of studying financial strategies and analyzing the habits of the ultra-rich, I've learned one undeniable truth. Debt isn't the enemy. Misused debt is. The difference between being crushed by it or using it as leverage depends entirely on one thing: financial intelligence. Most people see debt as a hole you dig yourself into. The rich, they see it as a ladder that lets them reach opportunities that would otherwise be out of reach. Think about this. While the average person borrows to buy things that lose value, like cars, vacations, or gadgets, the wealthy borrow to acquire things that generate value, assets that pay them back, often many times over. And that's the mindset shift that changes everything. So let's dive deep into how the rich use debt as fuel for their financial growth. First, you need to understand the two types of debt: bad debt and good debt. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket every month. It comes from credit cards, personal loans, or any borrowing used to buy things that don't produce income. Good debt, on the other hand, is the kind that puts money into your pocket. It's the loan that buys a rental property, generating cash flow. It's the financing that helps you build a business. It's the leverage that lets you invest in productive assets. The rich master the art of using good debt while avoiding bad debt like the plague. They don't take loans to impress others. They take loans to progress faster. They know that money borrowed at a lower interest rate can be transformed into assets producing higher returns. That's the secret sauce, the spread between the cost of borrowing and the rate of return. For example, imagine a wealthy investor borrowing $1 million at a 5% interest rate that costs him $50,000 a year, but he invests that million into a property portfolio that yields 10%. That means he's making $100,000 a year from the investment, paying $50,000 in interest, and keeping $50,000 in profit without ever using his own money. That's how the rich multiply wealth, not by saving their way to riches, but by controlling and leveraging other people's money. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. The rich understand that before using leverage, you must first learn how to manage money responsibly. They build a foundation of knowledge about how interest works, how cash flow operates, and how to calculate risk before making any move. They know that taking on good debt without understanding the numbers is gambling. But with education and discipline, it becomes a calculated investment strategy. Let's take real estate as one of the most common examples. When an ordinary person saves $20,000, they might think about buying a car or going on vacation. But a wealthy individual looks at that same $20,000 as a down payment for a $100,000 rental property. By using the bank's money, $80,000 borrowed at, say, 5%, they can buy a full property that might generate $1,000 in monthly rent. After paying the loan and expenses, maybe they keep $200 or $300 per month in profit. It doesn't sound huge at first, but here's where it gets interesting. Over time, the tenants are paying off the loan for them, the property value appreciates, and that small cash flow grows. 5 years later, that property might be worth $130,000. They've paid down part of the mortgage, and they can refinance or sell to take out equity, using that equity as leverage to buy 2 or 3 more properties. That's compounding growth powered by debt. The same principle applies to businesses. Wealthy entrepreneurs don't just save up until they can afford to start. They borrow strategically to scale faster. They use debt to hire talent, buy inventory, invest in marketing, and accelerate growth, because they understand that time is the most valuable asset. Waiting too long to expand can cost them millions in missed opportunities. The poor think of debt as a burden. The rich see it as fuel. Here's the big mindset difference. Poor and middle-class people use debt emotionally. The rich use it mathematically. When a regular person swipes a credit card, they're usually chasing instant gratification, something that feels good now but costs them later. When a wealthy person takes a loan, it's usually backed by analysis, numbers, and projections. They're not thinking, can I afford the monthly payment? They're thinking, will this debt make me more money than it costs me? Another crucial strategy rich people use is tax leverage. In many countries, especially the United States, debt can actually reduce taxable income. Interest payments on business loans or investment mortgages are often tax deductible. That means the rich not only use debt to make money, but also to legally minimize how much tax they pay on those profits. While the average person works hard, earns money, pays taxes, and spends what's left, the rich borrow, invest, and let their assets pay back the loans while enjoying significant tax advantages. It's also important to note that the rich often use secured debt backed by assets. This allows them to get lower interest rates and more favorable terms. They don't just max out credit cards, they use debt strategically, often backed by something valuable like real estate, stocks, or their business itself. In fact, many billionaires use their investments as collateral to borrow money instead of selling them. Why? Because if they sell assets, they pay capital gains tax. But if they borrow against them, they get cash without triggering a taxable event. Elon Musk, for example, has used billions in Tesla stock as collateral to borrow at extremely low rates, funding other ventures without paying a cent in taxes on his shares. That's not luck, that's strategy. Now, here's what separates the rich mindset even further. They understand that debt is a tool for control, not dependence. The goal is never to live off loans, but to use them to acquire control over income-producing assets. They know that if their investments produce steady cash flow, the debt becomes self-sustaining. They don't have to panic about paying it off because their assets are doing the work for them. And over time, those assets grow, rents rise, profits increase, and debt becomes smaller relative to their wealth. That's how people build empires that seem untouchable, because they mastered leverage while everyone else feared it. But let's go deeper into how the rich manage risk, because that's a side of the story that most people overlook. Rich people don't just borrow endlessly. They borrow with structure, with hedging, with insurance. They protect their assets. If they take on a real estate loan, they'll often fix the interest rate for long periods to avoid market shocks. If they invest in a business using borrowed money, they'll structure it under a corporation, separating personal liability from business risk. They build layers of protection because they understand that the more leverage you use, the more control and safety you need. That's another reason why the rich stay rich. They protect the downside before chasing the upside. And while many people think the wealthy are constantly taking massive gambles, the truth is the opposite. They are some of the most calculated, risk-aware people in the world. They diversify their income streams so that one project's debt doesn't sink the entire ship. If one business struggles, rental income, dividends, or other assets can cover their obligations. They play offense and defense at the same time, and that's what creates stability through leverage. Now imagine this. The average person works hard, earns a paycheck, and pays off debts that make them poorer. Credit cards, car loans, personal loans. The rich, meanwhile, use that same system in reverse. They borrow money to buy assets that generate income, and that income pays off the loans. Over time, the difference between these two approaches becomes enormous. One is trapped in a debt cycle. The other is building an empire funded by leverage. Let's take a small-scale example to make this crystal clear. Suppose two people each have $10,000. The first person buys a used car outright. It feels safe, debt-free, and comfortable, but that car loses value every day. In 5 years, that car is worth maybe $3,000. The second person uses that same $10,000 as a down payment on a $50,000 rental property, taking a loan for the rest. That property generates $600 a month in rent. After mortgage and expenses, they pocket maybe $100 a month. It doesn't sound like much, but here's what happens next. The tenants are paying down the loan, the property is appreciating, and in 5 years, the owner has built equity worth several $1,000s. And here's the best part. They can refinance, pull out cash, and buy another property. While the first person's car lost money, the second person's property made money, all because of how they use debt. Rich people also understand that access to credit is an asset in itself. They build strong credit profiles so they can borrow at lower interest rates, giving them a competitive edge. While the average person sees debt as something to fear, the wealthy see credit as an opportunity, a form of financial power. They maintain excellent credit, not because they need it, but because it gives them leverage whenever they spot an opportunity. They can act fast, borrow cheap, and invest when everyone else hesitates. And here's something few people talk about. The rich also use strategic refinancing. They don't just pay off debt, they recycle it. When the value of their assets increases, they refinance to extract equity, tax-free, and reinvest it elsewhere. It's a cycle that repeats over and over: borrow, invest, grow, refinance, and borrow again. Each time, expanding their portfolio and cash flow without selling assets. That's how generational wealth is created. The biggest mistake the middle class makes is thinking that being debt-free equals being financially free. It sounds noble, but it's not how wealth is built. Being debt-free just means you don't owe anyone. But being financially free means you own things that pay you whether you work or not. And to get there, you often need leverage. Smart, strategic, well-managed leverage. Now, let me be clear. Debt is not magic. It won't make you rich overnight. But when you combine discipline, education, and strategic thinking, it becomes a powerful multiplier. Every dollar borrowed should have a job, a purpose. If that borrowed money isn't producing income or appreciating in value, it's probably a bad debt. The moment you internalize this, your relationship with money changes forever. So if you're listening to this right now and you've been afraid of debt your whole life, remember this. The system was designed to make you a consumer. Credit cards, car loans, and personal loans are marketed to you emotionally. They want you to think debt equals status, comfort, and happiness. But the rich flip the script. They use that same system not to consume but to create. They turn liabilities into assets and they let their assets pay for their lifestyle. That's the real freedom, when your money works harder than you do. And maybe you're not ready to take out a business loan or buy a property yet, and that's fine. But you can start today by shifting your mindset. Look at every purchase and ask yourself, will this put money in my pocket or take it out? Start small. Learn how interest rates work. Study how compounding works. Watch how successful people manage leverage. Because the day you stop seeing debt as evil and start seeing it as a tool is the day you step onto the path toward wealth. Every single millionaire and billionaire you admire, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, even real estate moguls like Grant Cardone, all built their empires through strategic leverage. They didn't rely solely on savings. They used other people's money, scaled fast, and turned borrowed capital into billion-dollar assets. The difference between them and everyone else isn't luck. It's how they use time, money, and debt together. So, as you finish this video, remember this. The rich don't fear debt, they master it. They don't borrow to look rich, they borrow to become rich. And if you can learn that difference, your entire financial future will change. Don't run from debt, learn its rules, control it, and make it work for you. Because at the end of the day, wealth isn't about how much you earn. It's about how much you can control, multiply, and protect. If this message opened your eyes, hit the like button, subscribe for more, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because when you understand how the rich think, you start to realize that financial freedom isn't reserved for the lucky. It's reserved for the educated, the strategic, and the bold. The journey to wealth starts not with money, but with mindset. Master debt, and you'll master your financial destiny.